Hello, I'm back. Yes, welcome back to the channel. If you stuck around, thank you for sticking around. If you're new here, welcome on in. We are back, baby. So, after a long hiatus, I would like to go over a very popular team that has done very well, in a winning team, in fact. I want to go over the Sacramento Regional winning team that just picked up a big win this past weekend. I want to go over its strengths, why it's so good, why it was a team that was looking very well going into this weekend, and then how to beat it. Let's go over the team. All right. Now, so what we have here is the run of Carson Confer, who is the winner of the Sacramento Regional. Congrats to Carson, by the way. Carson, he's not a Texas local, but he is an Oklahoma City local. Oh, not an Oklahoma City, an OKC, an Oklahoma local. And he does pop up into my local scene from time to time. So it was kind of cool seeing somebody like I've actually played against, go to this event and actually win it all. And seeing his run was pretty interesting because he played a lot of different teams, which I think is a very telling strength, even the mirror, a telling strength of not only his play, but also the strength of this team. This team has a lot of good matchups into a lot of different things. Obviously, he was able to take it all the way, playing a different variety of teams, and that was probably the most interesting thing to look at, to see he even won a matchup that he lost in Swiss on day one, because he got the rematch against this guy Eric. I'm not gonna say your last name, not trying to butcher your name. I think that is a good sign of a good team when it can still win in a matchup that it loses in, because then that shows that one, it has the standing power to do so, to last to have matchups into almost anything, it seems. But definitely has already shown how powerful it is because of that win that it finally got. This is a take on an already popular team. Just to start out, I don't remember if it was the Lille Regional Championship that we had. Either way, the European Lille tournament competition that we had for VG, there was the Nikolai Hoj that used a very similar team that he created, because he loves Ursaluna Blood Moon, and he used it with a similar comp of Talonflame, Indeedee, Blood Moon, Sneeze, and Tatsugiri Dozo, if I'm not mistaken. We could pull that up and go over how that team actually looked. I've only seen it come out of one player, and that's Nikolai Hoj, one of the Nielsen brothers that played in Gdansk, and he used this team, which is, as you can see, 4 out of the 6 that Carson won with. And it's a very strong team, in my opinion. Nikolai got top 32 in Gdansk with this team, and it's an archetype that he was working on for a while. I remember he was running another Tailwind version of Blursa, which he's also very known. He's well known for playing Tailwind with Ursaluna Blood Moon, but he was running it with Whimsicott originally and Hisuian Arcanine, and then he came to this version that I believe him and his brother both played at Gdansk, and a few others, if I remember correctly, and he got the farthest with it, and he did a decent run, top 32, nothing to scoff at all. And it's super cool to see the adaptation to this team, because I think actually it's better, because one, we don't like Dondozo Giri on the channel. Sorry to the Dondozo Giri mains. It creates a lot more room to breathe with the version that Carson was able to win with, in my opinion. And here's why. If you didn't see the strengths of this core, we were able to see how the pairing of having actual redirection on a team like this is incredibly valuable, and especially on a very bulky Pokemon like Electabuzz. It gave pseudo speed control outside of Tailwind that was something that Hoj main speed control was that. Now, granted, like the Tatsugiri was Scarf on Hoja's team with like Icy Wind, but having this like bulky redirector and having redirection in general on on Carson's team is incredibly valuable, because we were able to see Electabuzz, Ursaluna lead, Protector Ursaluna, Electabuzz gets to get a free E-Web off basically because of how tanky it is into most mons that could double it, and it allowed it for you to have the speed control without having to set up the Tailwind, and then eventually sacking your Electabuzz or both of your Urbluzz and Ursaluna and having a sweeper in the back, whether it be the Sneasler and DD combination, or it could be I could bring in Talonflame. I'm assuming his Talonflame had some offense to it because just because of the set, because you're able to get away with not having to run Taunt. You get to run double Flare Blitz, which is pretty nice to have on Talonflame for like Goldingos, and forcing them to Terra or not Terra, or into popular Sun teams like Marco Fieros that just won the LEIC International. So this gave this team a lot more room to breathe without having to rely on Tailwind, which is like very, very, very strong, especially into this meta, because these types of Tailwind teams usually like have frail sweepers, as opposed to where you have two really bulky Pokemon paired with some, you know, frailer, very strong offensive pieces like Sneasler and Male and Didi, right? Incineroar, I'm assuming, was also probably a little bit more offensive. If I had to create Carson's team, I'm sure it was pretty fast, pretty strong, so that it could pick up some big knockouts, or at least put on some offensive pressure outside of just setting up Intimidate and threatening with Fake Out. And that being said, I think like the capability of a team like this is like super sick to see. You could go Talonflame Blursa, you could go Electabuzz Ursaluna, you could go Indeedee Sneasler, and then have like Talonflame Blood Moon in the back to close. Like there's just a lot of like things and utility that Carson has on this team that your opponents are like kind of forced to cover, can't always cover for. And you pick up so many dominating knockouts with like Terra Normal, Life Orb, Blood Moon with like Electabuzz or Talonflame, right? And then you just bring in your sweepers and like clean up the game for the most part. It's very interesting. We've seen a lot of different variations of like Male and DD throughout this format. Cool to see him go for the Helping Hand, Expanding Force, Protect route, especially since like Helping Hand and DD is actually, I highly think and recommend it to people that run in DD Sneasler with Psychic Seed and Unburden, because it is incredibly like powerful, I think, to be paired with a Sneasler. Heck, it's incredibly powerful to be paired with the Blood Moon, right? It just has that double coverage, spread damage on top of, if I need a Nuka slot that could win me this game, Helping Hand will get me there, you know. And that's very useful, along with having the dual wing beat. I'm not a huge fan of it, obviously, because we don't want to miss our moves, but hey man, it worked. It won. And it's really nice to be able to beat opposing Sneaslers if you're able to use your Talonflame outside of Psychic Terrain, or like if you go up against like Sash Whimsicots, or if you EV it even to knock out Cover Cloak Whimsicots. This is a pretty useful tech. Like I said, I do enjoy this team. It is very powerful. I don't see this team really going anywhere like for quite some time. If you're planning on playing in Stuttgart or Toronto or any other event coming up for the remainder of Regulation H, I do think that this is probably something I would love to play if I was going to one of those events. But let's say you didn't want to play it. We're gonna go over some things that I think actually could put up a pretty good fight against this team real quick. We have some things that I think could be good going up against this team. Opposing Tailwind, right? Talonflame having faster speed control, right, would do very well into a team like this. What are some things that could be faster speed control that I think would be good? Well, one, I think like Sand Tailwind is actually pretty strong into Carson's team. Now, some people did go to the regional playing like Tyranitar Escadrille. And even Carson did lose in his run versus somebody that was playing Tyranitar Escadrille. However, they didn't have like manual or priority Tailwind. Or I don't think they had Tailwind at all. He had Mouse Ape, his own Indeedee Sneasler, and I think T-Tar Escadrille, if I'm not mistaken. And Eric was on stream, actually. He was the one that beat Carson and Swiss of day one. And he had a pretty interesting team with like Focus Sash, Terra Ground, Escadrille. And this was something that like we saw Nils Dunlap do well with at the, I believe that was the Dortmund regional, if I'm not mistaken. I probably am mistaken. It probably was Lil. And this was like something that he also had his own like Indeedee Sneasler pairing with this, but he had like Scarf Indeedee. And I'm not saying that this would be the team I would lean towards to counter that one, but I would say that having faster Mons to be able to threaten all of those things, if you think about it, that are popular on that team, you have Incineroar, you have coverage with Tyranitar to be able to at least counter and be a nuisance for the opposing Indeedee, and the Talonflame and the Incineroar. Even though Incineroar would be good to bring into Intimidate, it still would take a lot of damage from a Terra Ground like EQ or like high horsepower. This is something I think would be super strong and do super well. So something to think about when you consider a team like Nils's, almost, or a reminiscent of Nils, because like Nils had like Corviknight, and then Nils also had like redirection. There's like different variations of like Sand, I think, that do very well into that team for sure, because then you get your own pressure out of having a very powerful hitter in Scarf Indeedee. You have a Sash Escadrille, you have Tyranitar, who doesn't get one shot at all with an Assault Vest into opposing Blood Moon, and with normal Terra being like the Terra of choice for a team like Carson's, it's really nice to be able to, one, knock off Electabuzz' Eviolite, two, threaten things like low kick into Blood Moon or Ursaluna. It does a lot, especially since like Blood Moon or Ursaluna on Tailwind teams usually aren't the bulkiest, and you have coverage with, like I said earlier, knock off, Rock Slide, and then Terra Blast, Terra Flying, so that you'd be able to EQ obviously next to your Escadrille. And you don't necessarily need to run, like I said earlier, Talonflame. You could get away with doing Nils' team again, probably. It could go full circle. However, I don't know about not how confident I am in running Corviknight Magmar into Carson's team, but I would say having your own Talonflame, or having your own like fast speed control, or having Sand and weather control is very valuable against a team like Carson's. You just would need to think about the other matchups, obviously, like how would you beat Rain, how would you beat Sun, which I don't think Sand would have too much issues dealing with Sun for the most part. Obviously you have to deal with the jump bluffs and their sleep powders, but I do think like Sand definitely has a good strong place, and obviously a faster mode, having faster mons into the opposing Tailwind like Carson's team. Another thing you could do instead of Escadrille, if you wanted to go down the Sand route, is go Garchomp. Now Garchomp doesn't obviously outspeed opposing Sneasler. However, I mean, neither does Escadrille, to be fair, but if you get up Tailwind and have Sand up, it does. But however, Garchomp has an amazing ability, obviously, in Sandveil. It's a little cheeky, but it is pretty sick to be able to dodge moves and get a nice little fraud dodge with Sand in under Sandveil. And then you also obviously have Rough Skin if you want to be tried and true and get that nice little chip into opposing Sneaslers or Sash Sneaslers, and consistently just chip away at your opponent with the Sand. But yeah, I think like Garchomp obviously is a nice pick, because into Carson's team, think about it, like, I mean, quite literally outside of Talonflame, there are no ground immunes, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4 ground weaks. And even again, like a Tailwind Blood Moon, like we said earlier, is not the bulkiest thing in the world. So because of that, it will do quite a bit. Like Garchomp EQ will do a decent amount into, sorry, we're not running butts, body slam Garchomp. It's a new tech. No, but this will do a decent amount into a Blood Moon, even if like it has like, you know, it has amazing stats, which is why Blood Moon is so good right now, or just in general, especially in a format like this, because it has like one of the highest like BSTs. I mean, like, look at these stats, these are amazing, right? It has so much good bulk, even with it not having like you know, it has like mediocre special defense, it has a really good HP stat, and you have, like I said, the redirection and the speed control for it to be able to not really be too concerned with it. But yeah, I do think like having Garchomp and T-Tar or Sand in general would be really nice into Carson's team. And again, like, it's not going to be an auto win, but this is an archetype that's definitely something like to consider, to be able to combat a team like this. Having your own Indeedee Sneeze, like I recommended, could work. And again, having something like we've used on my channel, if you see me play very on the format, shout out to Clouds, good friend, team building friend of mine. I always go to him with ideas, or he spits his ideas at me and sends me teams. And this was a team that he basically had created for this format. Now, it's very standard for the most part, and originally it had Aqua Tauros on it. Now, I don't think Aqua Tauros is very good right now, but I do think that the core of like the old classic Sand core, because it's something we've seen before in previous formats earlier on in like Reg B. I don't think we really saw too much of this in Reg A, but we did see like Sand teams do well in Reg B that were similar to this. And like, I mean, this was just super strong. And it's still strong now, honestly. Like, you know, people usually don't like try to run Sand because of how strong and prevalent Rain is, but like, this is a pretty powerful archetype. It's not an auto win at all into Rain, but it's very strong and has a lot of tools and utility to be able to withstand that matchup. And same thing, like, I think having a strong special attacker like Specs Goldingo is really sick into a lot of different teams. It provides, like, obviously a spore immune, a status immune, right, with its good as gold ability, and then the ability to be able to trick things like opposing Amoonguss, or being able to shut down like Incineroars or like fake out Mons, or like a Rillabooms, for example. It's really nice because that's something that obviously T-Tar or Garchomp wouldn't want to see or go into. Amoonguss is just an incredible mon in general. Once you're able to remove things or nuisances that like run manual taunt like Electabuzz, or that prevent the spores from coming up into opposing teams, this mon is pretty decent. I don't know how well it would probably do now on a team like this, knowing that you have to go up against like Psyspam, but it's something to consider. The last two slots are definitely the most flexible slots on a team like this. I think if you wanted to run Garchomp Sand, I think these four are the strong core to be able to pick up and use. We would consider possibly like having things to be able to deal with Dondozo, being able to have another sweeper, a special sweeper like Goldingo, or another good strong like Defiant Mon like maybe Annihilate could work on a team like this as well. I really do like Annihilate right now in the format. I think it's like super strong. It was something I had like really thought was pretty good going into the format. However, you do need to have, into a team like this, it still would do well, but you do need to have a really strong way to deal with the size spam factor if you wanted to run Annihilate on Sand. Let me know what you think, and if you think of any other teams that you think are gonna do well going into Stuttgart or into Sacramento that can beat this team, or if you just want to use this team, I highly recommend it as well. Sand is not too super popular for a reason, because it's kind of hard for some players to pilot it right now with all the other archetypes that are pretty popular. But I do think it is a decent archetype to consider. Sand was picking up in popularity going into Sacramento for a reason, you know, trying to beat the LAIC winning team. that Marco Fiore used with Charizard and Jumpluff. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about this team that Carson used, what you think about my theory about Sand being the play to go into Stuttgart and Toronto to be able to deal with this team. Because again, like I said, I don't think like Carson's team or this version of Carson's team isn't going anywhere, to be honest. It probably maybe will get tweaked here and there with like one mon change or set change, but I don't think this team would go anywhere anytime soon. Let me know what you think about this team again in the comments of the video, and if you enjoyed this video, do like, comment, subscribe, please. We're coming back full circle. I have taken a long hiatus for good reasons, but now I'm back and I'm glad to be back. So I'll be here and coming out with another video. I'm looking forward to doing a coverage post Stuttgart and going into what I think would be good teams to run for the next GC that's coming up next weekend, and then obviously what I think would be a good team to call going into Toronto. So if you want to keep up with me and the teams and the analysis that I have for these teams and events and going into these competitions that we have coming up, please do subscribe. It means the world to me. It's free, and you get to keep up with what I'm doing and when I'm doing it. I really do appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys for watching this video. So catch you on the next one. Peace.